Hello everyone, my name is Sarah, and I am pursuing my second PhD in education at the University of Bath right now. I already have a PhD in psychometrics, and today I'm going to talk about a research project I carried out with a team about 8 years ago. I was responsible for monitoring and supervising the data gathering process and analyzing the data. My presentation consists of two parts. First, I'm going to talk about the project itself, the aims, the process of data gathering, and also the results, because the results could be a little bit interesting to you. And then I'm going to talk about three main challenges that we faced throughout the whole process and the strategies that we adopted to address them and mitigate the risks. Sorry. Okay. Uh, the main goals of these research projects were first, designing Iranian scale for problematic online pornography use, and second, determining the psychometric properties of this scale. Now, how did we design this scale? We first conducted a thorough literature review on excessive pornography use and all the relevant variables. We examined the conceptualization, epidemiology, we identified correlates and consequences, and also we explored risk factors and treatment strategies. This was a very thorough literature review that we finally actually published a book based on this literature review. Here is the list of all the assessment tools that we meticulously analyzed. We studied all the underlying frameworks that they used to design their items. And it could be interesting to you to see that they use different terminology to describe this phenomenon. For example, they used cyber pornography use. They used they even used addiction or compulsion or craving, different terms. So we finally decided to base our own framework on these different factors. First, we had a kind of outdated model. It was a biopsychosocial model by Brown, and it was reviewed by Griffith with Griffith's model of behavioral addiction, because this model was used frequently to explain a technology-related mental health problem, which pornography use or excessive pornography use is one of them. We also looked at DSM-5 criteria for hypersexual disorder, and we gathered evidence on shared criteria across problematic sexual behaviors. And of course, we had some contextual and cultural considerations, which I'm going to talk more in a couple of minutes. Finally, we had a 7-factor with 7-component framework to start writing our items. We adopted an iterative strategy to actually design our items. As I mentioned, we were a team consisting of psychologists and me as a psychometrician. So we wrote down the items based on the literature review and all the studies and existing tools. At first, we had 33 items. I carried out a pilot study participating 31 people. We asked people to write down their feedback, and I also calculated inter-item and item total correlations, and also we examined the contribution of each item to the reliability, and finally we had 24 items at hand. For our sampling process, we used non-random online snowball sampling because based on the literature, we knew that it was an effective way for researching sensitive constructs such as watching pornography. We used Telegram channels and Instagram pages to ask people to actually recruit the potential participants. We use these two platforms because these two are the most popular platforms among Iranians. And these channels and pages were dedicated to actually psychological content. So we had kind of psychology-focused audiences. I used Google Forms to create the questionnaires. They were anonymous. And we had two simple criteria. First, being older than 18, and second, having watched at least once, pornographic material during the past 6 months. And these two criteria were based on the previous literature and also previous studies. And now we included informed consent related information in our recruitment message, and also at the beginning of our questionnaire. We know identifying information was collected and the responses were not traceable to people. However, we ask people to leave their email address if only if they wanted to be invited to our free workshops or further assessment. And I stored the data on Excel sheets and I analyzed the data using SPSS and Amos. It could also be interesting to you that we um, assessed other variables as well. Based on the literature review, we knew that there should be a kind of relationship between difficulties in emotion regulation and problematic pornography use. So we included this scale into our project. We also assessed demographic variables, and I included two single items, assessed with 5-point Likert type questions to assess relational and sexual satisfaction. Uh, Also, we wanted to understand the pattern of people's pornography use. So again, we included single items that could reflect this pattern. You can see, for example, frequency of pornography viewing during per session, using masturbation, without that, and also the age of first exposure to pornography. All of them are based on the literature review and the previous studies. We borrowed different variables from different sources. We also asked people about their access method and using pornography in the workplace, sharing this content, and also the devices that they used. Now, the next day, my email inbox was exploding because I was so naive that I didn't untick the box that said send me an email if someone answers. So, and we didn't expect that 1,921 people actually answered the questions. So now it's a good time that I explain the reason for our surprise, because you might on my country is now under attack. We are extremely worried about our families and loved ones. And we are at the same time very hopeful that this will mark the end of this Islamic Republic regime. So you know that the political system of Iran is religious. However, the people are not necessarily religious. In the meantime, they are living in a somehow conservative context, and under, the culture is very conservative. So it's not very easy to, it's not common actually to talk about watching pornography material or engaging in sexual activities. So that's the reason that we didn't expect that people would actually people would want to share this kind of information with us. So this high engagement should be explained. So I myself thought that this high rate could reflect this topic's salience. Um, it could reflect the curiosity arising from limited access to scientific information about pornography in restricted contexts such as Iran's, and also, and most importantly, the anonymity afforded by online data collection. It could worth noting that we added a question asking people about their sexual orientation, and almost 11% of people answered that they were either bisexual or homosexual. And homosexuality is illegal in Iran. And even for men, it could be punished by even death sentence. But people were so honest with us. So it was really surprising for us. I also carried out a data quality screening because some kind of patterns in responses, as my fellow said, some patterns could reflect unreliable answering. So surprisingly, again, nobody answered that way. And we didn't have a missing data because there was this mandatory responding on. Here is a actually shortened version result of the confirmative factor analysis. These in the circles, they show the components, and as you can see, this was our pre-assumed model, which was confirmed. I use AMOS to analyze the data. And unfortunately, we don't have that much time to go into the details of the subscales, the core concepts, and key features. I just wanted to show you the subscales or the components. And this table shows the items corresponding to each subscale or each component, as you can see. I also used various methods to determine validity and reliability. For reliability, you can see that I use AMOS to calculate composite reliability, and I use SPSS to calculate Cronbach's alpha. And it could be interesting to you that we found strong relationships between problematic pornography use and viewing frequency, and also masturbation with pornography. Now, as expected, we found a positive relationship between problematic pornography use and emotion regulation difficulties, and we found negative relationships between problematic pornography use and the age of first exposure, relational and sexual satisfactions. And also, younger people scored higher. These results could also be interesting to you because we found statistically meaningful differences between people who watch pornography in the workplace, people who share this material, men and single individuals without sexual relationships. They scored higher than their peers, and also straight women scored the lowest. Now, the key challenges along the way. This question was our main concern because as scientists, we wanted to rely on existing frameworks, existing knowledge, but we also wanted to acknowledge the unique context of Iran. So how strongly to rely on international addiction framework while accounting for the local cultural and normative context. So our approach was first conducting a comprehensive literature review, as I mentioned, because we want to understand how this phenomenon or how this variable was conceptualized globally. Based on that, we identified the limitations in existing measures. I listed two of these limitations. First of all, most of these measures or tools, they overlooked the realities of individuals living within religious or morally conservative context. They actually they were great for Western culture, but they didn't care about people who are living in they were not culturally based tools for contexts such as Iran's. And also, they assumed that the participants were engaging in sexual activities with a partner. So they didn't, they completely ignored people who didn't have a partner, who were single, or people who were actually engaging in solitary activities such as masturbation. So we also analyzed our religious and moral norms. We considered Islamic law and moral views on pornography, and we also considered input from our collaborating psychologists. Our final decision was adding an extra component to our model, which was called guilt, because this feeling, this could be erased or even experienced actually, even by non-religious individuals who are living in a religious or morally conservative social environment. So that was our decision to address this challenge. The second challenge that we faced was the kind of language that we had to adopt. So for designing the items, we adopted a simple everyday language because we wanted the items to be easy to understand. We wanted them to be precise. For the items belonging to each subscale, we tried our best to design them to be unidimensional, unambiguous, and at the same time, they should have been consistent with the overall scale. And of course, we adopted a non-aggressive tone. Now, again, we had to take into account the cultural considerations. Based on the previous studies, we knew that individuals or religious individuals or individuals living in religious context or conservative context, they overestimate their use and they tend to self-label as addicted. So here are the decisions that we made. We started our questionnaire with a clear definition of pornography because we wanted to ensure a shared understanding and we wanted to reduce ambiguity and response bias. Here you can see actually the definition that we use. We borrowed different parts of this definition from different studies and we revised it many times, and here is the final definition. And we also avoid using the term addiction, and we used problematic use because we wanted to reduce the stigma and resistance. And of course, by the end of the day, it was just a questionnaire. And with the data from the questionnaire, you cannot label someone as addicted. And here is the final challenge that we face: creating a balance ethics and engagement in our in the message that we use for participant recruitment. Here are the key questions. First, how much information is sufficient for ethical transparency? Can overly detailed description discourage participation in sensitive research? And should recruitment message be brief and accessible or detailed and academic? So, what were the risks? If we had used a very long and formal message to invite people to answer our questions, we might have reduced the response rates. And if we had used an overly brief message, we might have compromised informed consent. So we didn't want to discourage people and we didn't want to be unethical. So here is our final approach. We adopted a concise and clear tone. We included essential ethical information about eligibility, anonymity, people's right to withdraw, and we also avoid clinical or judgmental language because we wanted to reduce the stigma. Here is the translation of our recruitment message. You can see that we added emojis because we wanted it to seem a little bit fun. And you can see that it includes all the necessary information. Thank you all for listening to my presentation, and I will be more than happy to answer the questions.
Thank you very much, Sarah. That was fantastic. I'm amazed by how much, well, both you and Nancy can pack into a 20-minute presentation. We have one question in the Q&A already. I don't know, Rebecca, are you happy to turn on your mic and ask that question? Just give her a couple of minutes in case that's something she wants to do, otherwise I'll ask the question.
Sorry, I've only just enabled the microphone.
Oh, okay.
But it should work now.
So
perfect, thank you. Please don't mind me, I have like a bit of a heckle at the minute. Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yeah.
No, Sarah, great, like thank you so much for that talk. You brought up some really good points because like I said, they're in my comment. I'm a first year PhD researcher and I'm also doing skill development too. So it's really relevant to me what you were saying. Pretty much I was just curious into saying, because you mentioned there about how you'd used participant feedback in your pilot testing. I was just curious to see if you had used like what do you call them again? The screening interviews beforehand. So say like people would have used screening interviews to kind of look at stuff with participants, like the wording or the structure before pilot testing. I was just saying if you had done that or not.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. We actually we use forms, and we added just an space below each question, asking them if the question was had a good tone, or if they were satisfied with the wording. However, as I mentioned, I was a part of the team. I was working with psychologists, and they had some patients or clients with this problem. So we actually use their input to refine our items. So but basically we ask those people to do that, and it could worth noting that after this project, my colleague who was a psychologist, she used it to to find a cut score, because she had some people with this problem, and they were diagnosed with actually addiction label kind of. They had the diagnosis, so we used their score in our questionnaire to find the cut score.
Yes, no, perfect. Again, thank you so much. Amazing.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, Rebecca. Does anyone else have a question they'd like to turn on their mic and ask at this point? Anqi, do go ahead.
Yeah, so just out of curiosity, I think you mentioned there are 7 sub-skills of like 7 distinct aspects of skills. So do they all correlate with the emotion dysregulation difficulty questionnaire, or just some of them? Okay.
Yeah. You can imagine with this large sample, all the correlations would be statistically meaningful, but they were also strong.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Great. Do we have any other questions? Is there anything coming up in the Q&A?
I suppose we could revisit Armin's question from earlier. Before I do that, I just wanted to just direct people to the link I just posted in the chat about our survey. Very helpful for us in determining future training. And also, if you haven't seen already, we've just released registration for 6 other sessions in the webinar series in April and May. So make sure to check those out. But Armin's question was obviously initially for Anqi, but I suppose perhaps, Sarah, if you'd be interested in responding in the context of your research as well. I suppose, yeah, Anqi, so you obviously you did kind of talk through how you disseminated your survey through the Sampley app, but I will pick up on one particular sub-question in there. Is I suppose, how did you ensure that it was a diverse group, and or at least a representative group of the respondents that you wanted to focus on? What were some of the considerations there?
So I feel like because we only look at this undergraduate population, and they're mostly, I think, first year or second year psychology students. So it's definitely not like it can't be generalized to the whole population. So I feel like we could have done better in diversifying in recruitment. So I feel like if I were to do something like this again, I would probably use like other platform, like for instance, Prolific, where you can like I don't know, have a larger age range, and also like hopefully, yeah, I don't know, hopefully make sure that the people come from different backgrounds. So and also one thing we didn't do is that we didn't like record other characteristics like socioeconomic status and also ethnicity information. So it's really quite like limited in this way. So I think this is a key limitation of my study, actually, if that makes sense.
I know obviously this is just in the scope of a PhD study at the end of the day, isn't it? So, Sarah, would you like to add in relation to your project?
Yeah, actually, our sample was really diverse. We, in terms of age, we had from 18 to 65, and we have, people from all walks of life actually answered our questions. The variances were really high, so we were sure that our non-random, it was called non-random sampling process, but actually we found normality in our distribution because the sample was so large.
Fascinating, thank you.
No, that's very, very interesting. If we don't have any more questions, I'll just kind of ask, I'm imagining that there's some people here who are at the stage of kind of planning their data collection, putting together a proposal. And it can be very hard to anticipate how, or to plan the data analysis process before you have your data. I just wondered, what was the best advice that you received, or the best advice that you wished you'd received at that, when you were at that point of planning your research?
Are you asking me? Should I answer?
Both of you, but in whichever order.
To me, it's studying a lot, reading the literature, looking at similar studies, or even studies that are outdated, different studies, reading different studies and picking the things that could be relevant. Yeah, then you can personalize what you want to do. That's my way.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's useful to start from like an existing data set to just like learn how to like do some of the analysis and also read relevant literature, and then try out some of these methods for yourself before you run like the actual study. So I feel like just like, because there are so many open data sets online as well, so it's possible to explore them for yourself first.
Yeah, thank you very much. And of course, you both had what was quite clear is you were both working as part of a team. And I think it's great to give insights into that, because of course, once you finished a PhD, and some people even within the PhD, a lot of research actually is working as part of a team. So I think, thank you very much. I think a final opportunity to show our appreciation to Anqi and Sarah for their very comprehensive presentations, and for that really giving us a real insight into that process of planning the data collection as well as the analysis. Thank you.